Hello everyone, welcome to the Aussie Game Podcast where we talk all things Australian football. We're back for another action-packed week because there's always plenty happening, and here to help me talk all through that is Mopper. How are you, mate?
Yeah, good, Chief. Welcome, everyone. Great to break it all down again. We've got lots of stories to tell. No real absolute standout for the weekend, but plenty of really good stories. So I think we need to just get straight into it. And what about we just touch base on some overnight scores and first of all go to last weekend's highlights after we recorded?
Yeah, do you want to take us through last weekend? Because that was probably the most exciting part of the week because there was plenty happening after we finished recording on Sunday night last week. Do you want to go through them, mate?
Yeah, definitely. So we'll start with Maty Ryan. We spoke about him last week in Levante's. Obviously, they're down the bottom and they're struggling to get some results, but Maty Ryan's team picked up their first point early on in the week. First point of the year with Ryan was absolute under siege in this game. Real Betis, who are really on form, were hammering the goal. They had 28 shots, 9 on target. Ryan made several key saves to hold on for a draw. It was a super effort by Ryan and one of his best performances. So that was fantastic. And we also had some really good news over in Austria with Rapid when Tilio was a substitution. He come on at halftime, but he celebrated his first goal for his new club and a 4-1 win, making a nice run on the counter. He received a nice ball on the left-hand side inside the box, and he had a nice left foot finish to put in the bottom corner. So he was super stoked there and super excited about that. And well done to Tilio. We'll be looking for a lot more for him. And obviously he's been, after his move from Celtic, looking for some full-time and first-time football, but off the bench, but scored a great goal. Austria won last week. Noah Bodic came on in the second half. He played 26 minutes, had one shot, and his team's 1-0 win over Sturm Graz. Over in Sparta Prague, we had an awesome debut for Graham Cole off the bench too, so it was great to see him finally get some minutes after his move from Newcastle. We had also injury returns from Jackson Irvine and St. Pauli was on the bench, but unfortunately they're just managing him with St. Pauli, as you'll see later on in the broadcast for their game overnight. And we also had Gianni Stennis from Viking have an injury return. So lots of exciting news there, especially in regards to Maty Ryan and Tilio. If we look
just on the injury returns as well. So obviously Irvine hasn't been out all that long, but Gianni Stensis on his way back from a ACL injury. So it was great to see him make his appearance on the bench, and I believe they're playing overnight as well. So hopefully he can get some game time. But I think he's potentially one of those ones that might make a late run for the Socceroos, a centre back option. So we'll see how he progresses over the next couple of weeks.
Oh, that's a big call, Chief, straight off the bat, especially with the amount of depth that we've got. So how old's he, Chief?
Great question, mate. Well, I'll get that to you.
I'll put you on the spot. That's okay.
That's all right. You keep going. I'll drag that info out for you.
No worries. And in the England Women's Super League early on the week, we had Chelsea's Ellie Carpenter played another full game, and we've seen Sam Kerr return for the first time after a long injury stint, scoring in her return, a poacher finish, picking up a loose ball in the box in Chelsea's 3-1 win over Villa. In a magical moment and a relief for all of Kerr's fans, finally seeing her back after 20 months injury. It's been a long journey, but straight off the goal poacher instinct, she's still got it. And wasn't she happy with that big smile?
Was it that she had like 3 cracks at it as well? Like she was just like bang bang, got to score it. Like it just shows that intent, doesn't it? Like that's for Chelsea and for the Matildas, just that goal scoring instinct is so good.
Yeah, and obviously it'll be a bit of a slow burn with Sam Kerr, being 20 months out. Obviously building up her fitness there. Obviously getting some cameo time, but her team's in the Champions League too, so she's going to get plenty of opportunities to build that fitness up in the next few months. We also had some great results early on the week with Claire Hunt's team, Tottenham. She played a full game and she was solid at the back with 72 accurate passes, which is exactly what Joe's going to be looking for out of that centre-back pairing for the Matildas. And Charlie Grant was good to see her. It was a second-half substitute. She played 16 minutes in a 2-0 win away to Everton. So they both got great results. And then what about Leicester City's Emily Van Egmont? She scored the winner on her home debut in the 59th minute early in the week, scoring off a great cross and with a sublime header. And Leicester, Chief, was only down to 10 players with a player just sent off before, and they scored obviously against Liverpool, a 1-0 win, a crucial win for the Foxes and their first win of the season. So some really good news stories for Emily Van Egmont and her team. Over in Scotland, we've seen young Millie Morton from Hibernian obviously come on in the second half. Their team dominated in a 5-0 win over Montrose, and that's great to see Millie get some game time. She's a young one. She's on loan there from Hibs. We're looking forward to seeing her future as she progresses along. And then
Yeah,
we've
so
got
heaps of I just wanted to say debuts, goals, comeback stories. It was all happening last weekend, wasn't it? After we finished recording, Gianni Stensness, 26 years old, so in the peak of his career, I'd say at that age. So I just think he's a good option there for. And I know we're pretty stuck there with centre backs, but if he can have a good run of form, I don't think he'd be too far away from some conversations.
Yeah, we wish him well, and game time will be the important one then. And the girls have just got it all happening, haven't they? They got a European Champions League draw, which was done during the week as well. So a lot of those teams and players that we discussed will be obviously in action in Champions League soon as well. We also had some midweek highlights. We had, what about this one? The Aussie battle at Swansea versus Notts Forest. Cam Burgess double. Senior post up the goal. What a fantastic moment. Sinks Ange's Nottingham Forest. I'm
What a
sure
goal, mate!
Ange.
What a goal!
Oh,
Mm.
a
Like,
central defender, like up top of the box and bang. It was beautiful. What a moment. Two.
is he competing with Mohamed Toure for that number 9 spot for the Socceroos or something?
Hey, it's not a bad option if we need a late goal. But no, it was great to see. It was super stoked. Wasn't it? It was a great win for Swansea. I'm sure Ange wouldn't be too disappointed. I know he's got to put on the face, but I'm sure getting out of a cup when he's got all that Europe coming up as well, I'm sure he'll be like, "Yep, okay, thanks for coming." Uh, but a
It was a
great
blessing in
story.
disguise, but it was a blessing in
Yeah.
disguise, but I'm sure that he also would have wanted his team to, see that game out as well. So,
Oh,
you know,
100%.
both sides of it you can see.
Yeah. But anyway, Cam Burgess double sinks, beautiful for Ange Forest, so a great result there for Swansea. We've also seen a start for Toure and for Randers, and Izzo was still injured for Randers as well. Over in America, we've seen 90 minutes for Yazbak at Nashville as they progress to the final of the Open Cup. That's our obviously equivalent to our Australian Cup over in America. We've seen Shanghai Port. This is in the Asian Champions League. We were speaking about this last week. They lost 3-0 to Vissel Kobe, which is Melbourne City's next opponents as well. So that was they were absolutely on fire. Vissel Kobe is actually challenging for the J League at the moment. And obviously we had 79 minutes for Tilio again in Rapid Vienna's cup win. So another 79 minutes for Tilio there. So that was fantastic, and a cup win as well. We also seen Geordie Boss, obviously from Feyenoord, had another 78 minutes during the week in their Eredivisie, and Feyenoord 5 from 5, and they play a massive game, obviously in, I think it was Ajax, is it? Is it
No,
Ajax
they're
or is
playing
it
AZ Alkmaar tonight.
AZ Alkmaar
Um,
tonight? Top of
yeah,
the
yeah.
table clash, I think. So, yeah, but Feyenoord 5 from 5, so they're on fire. And also Mr. Consistent Aidan O'Neill over in America had another 82 minutes in the MLS. And this was probably the most important one for me, Chief. Riona Heatley returns for Roma as they progress for the Champions League group stage. She had full game, 90 minutes. They were down 2-1 in the first leg, and Roma ended up winning 2-0 in the second away from home, with Riona Heatley installed back into the starting lineup and played a crucial part in that victory, which has now seen them progress through the UEFA Champions League, which is exactly where we want Riona to play. Unfortunately, on the other side of the coin, Haley Russo's Frankfurt were beaten by Real Madrid, who now enter the Europa stage. But Real Madrid were way too strong for Frankfurt in that one. But Haley Russo will have Europa to compete with, as well as the Women's Bundesliga. So that's a full wrap from earlier on in the week and midweek action. So obviously lots of games and lots of talking points. Anything you've seen during the week that you're excited about?
Oh, obviously Cam Burgess, it was awesome Cam Burgess, but felt sorry for Ange as well. And we obviously want him to do well as well. Winnie Heatley, as you mentioned, through to the UEFA Women's Champions League. They've drawn a few small clubs as their opponents: Chelsea, Real Madrid, Barcelona. So I think, look, as a glass half full, thinking that she's going to have some great opponents to come up against and really be able to prove herself. So I think that's fantastic. And yeah,
Isn't that
Tilio,
what you want as a footballer, yeah, Roma?
yeah, of
Like,
course.
but playing they play at home against Barca, away to Chelsea, home to St. Polten, away to Real Madrid, away to Valencia at home, sorry, and Levante away. So, wow, Barcelona, Chelsea, Real Madrid for Warren Heatley coming up.
Yeah,
Love
you
it.
want to challenge yourself against the best. So yeah, that's awesome for Winnie Heatley. And yeah, we wish her all the best. And yeah, can't wait to hopefully she gets some more minutes. As I said, we're a bit disappointed to see her drop some minutes across some of those legs, but she's back in the starting lineup and they're getting results. So hopefully that says a lot about what's going on. All right, we only got to midweek, mate, so we better touch on all the overnight action because there's a fair bit to get through. Let's start in the Premier League with Notts Forest. Ange Postecoglou, he remains winless as Nottingham Forest manager as they drew 1-1 with Burnley. Both had chances to win the game, but neither could kind of get the decisive blow. I'm sure that was one that I think both the Swansea game and the Burnley game after he had Arsenal first up were games that he would have expected his team to take care of, but can't guarantee anything in the Premier League. So yeah, what did you make of that game and the performances? Is Ange under a bit of pressure early on?
No, he's not under pressure. They did have a lot of ball. They had a lot of chances. Geez, it was terrible conditions. The weather was horrendous, but they had plenty of chances to probably seal it in difficult conditions and difficult opponents. Burnley's proven against that against Liverpool last week. So, look, the hard thing is for Ange, he's come into 4 away games to try to settle his side, but I think he's starting to get a feel for it. Their football has definitely changed. It is a lot more open, as we'd probably expect. I think the results will come. It's just a matter of him trying to find the balance. But he's got Real Betis away from home this week on Thursday too. They're coming fifth and in really good form in La Liga. They are looking very good. So he's got another tough contest, but I don't think Ange after this last year would expect anything different. He's at the highest level, so every game
Yeah.
counts.
I think that second goal against Swansea really showed what he wants to do. The way that they were knocking the ball around, great movement. Reminded me so much of some of those goals we saw at his time at Brisbane Roar, even, with the fullbacks getting down line and kind of cutting it back and just making smart options in front of goal. So if he can do that more and more, and hopefully for Notts Forest fans, that's a bit of a glimpse into what he can do. So let's hope we see a bit of that, as you said, Real Betis in the Europa League this Thursday. So let's hope that Ange can get his first win in that fixture. Let's get over to the Championship. Let's start with Middlesbrough. Sammy Silvera, he played 48 minutes off the bench. He came on just before half-time as an injury replacement, as Borough stay unbeaten on top of the Championship with a 2-1 win over West Brom. So, yeah, it looks that Matt Targett's got that left wing back spot. But as you said to me the other day, mate, good to see that the Rob Edwards still has the faith in bringing Sam Silvera on.
Yeah, definitely. I thought it was exciting. I was a bit worried about it actually, but it just goes to show how the qualities Rob still included in that squad because that's a huge credit still to get 48 minutes because he's definitely not going to be in that left wing back spot. We've taken it there.
Yep. All right. Let's go to Portsmouth. Some kind of interesting things happening over there. So Segacic started and played 67 minutes. Hayden Matthews got 38 minutes off the bench. So that was pretty pleasing. And his game time's been fairly limited. Unfortunately, they lost 2-0 to Sheffield Wednesday, which I'm sure is a result that not many people saw coming. This was a bit concerning, though, that came out just before the game. Thomas Waddingham, he's been listed as injured with a hip injury and out for 12 weeks. So we know that our boys at Pompey have had their fair few injury concerns. And yeah, add Thomas Waddingham to this one. So he's not going to be back in action until December. So it's a huge concern for us.
Yeah, that's a big impact, and he's trying to. He was injured late last year too. So obviously, another setback for him. But hopefully, we can see him recover well and get back in the next 12 weeks. We wish him well and speedy recovery.
Yeah, let's hope so. Cameron Burgess couldn't match his double midweek, but they unfortunately lost 1-0 to Birmingham City, who obviously have aspirations to jump straight through from League One up all the way up to the Premier League. But yeah, Cameron Burgess, so good to see him getting the match minutes though. And then just rounding off the championship, Callum Elder played 45 minutes as his derby lost 1-0 to Preston. Let's go to League One. Wigan Athletic, Rafael Borges Rodriguez was brought on at half time, but they lost 4-1 to Bolton. Joe Gauci, his Port Vale, they move out of the relegation zone. Gauci didn't have a lot to do. They only had one shot on target all game. Mansfield Town, unfortunately, it went in the back of the net. But anyway, good to see that Gauci getting those minutes and for Port Vale to be getting that result and climbing out of the relegation zone, albeit that it's early in the season. And there were a couple of results in the Women's Super League on Friday night their time, Saturday morning our time. So first start of the season for Charlie Grant for Spurs, who played 64 minutes. Spurs are actually unbeaten until this game, but they were thrashed 5-1 by Manchester City. No, Man City's going to be right up there, so nothing too major going on there. But Claire Hunt played a full game. Unfortunately, she gave away a penalty, so pretty rough night for our Matildas that are playing over at Spurs. And then London City, they picked up their first ever Women's Super League win. Alana Kennedy got 6 minutes off the bench, and then Claire Wheeler for Everton played the full 90 minutes. So yeah, that's all that's happening in England. There's a couple of games happening tonight concerning our Australians over in England, and I think like Watford don't play until like Tuesday morning. So yeah, there's a bit of chopping and changing, I think, with the League Cup campaign. Yeah.
Europe as well, and Carabo Cup. It's all mixed in there, and internationals as well. So the draws spread out quite a fair bit over the next few weeks with more internationals coming up as well. Over to Scotland, mate. What do we got over there?
Yeah, so yeah, again, kind of a mixed bag because some are playing in the Premiership and some are playing in the League Cup. But Ryan McGowan, he was surprisingly omitted from the matchday squad for Livingston. Not sure. I didn't see any injury news, but he normally captains the side, so not sure if something's gone on there. Teddy Yangi, his teammate, played 59 minutes. They conceded a late goal to lose 3-2 to Dundee FC. Some better news in the League Cup. Keanu Bacchus's St Mirren, they progressed to the semi-finals, beating Kilmarnock on penalties. Bacchus played 89 minutes. And then Aberdeen versus Motherwell was another game in the League Cup. So Motherwell progressed to the League Cup semi-finals with a 1-0 win. For Motherwell, Apostolos Stamatolopoulos played 90 minutes and Johnny Kachumbres came on late for them. Nicholas Milanovic and Nick Suman were unused subs for Aberdeen, and Cassini Yangi wasn't in the matchday squad. And then for Hibs, Martin Boyle, he started and played 82 minutes, and Jack Iredale was an unused sub as Hibs lost 2-0 to Rangers to be knocked out of the League Cup. So a few of our players through to the League Cup semi-final. So Bacchus and obviously the boys at Motherwell. I think Celtic and I think Partick Thistle might be the other game tonight. So yeah, the big boys are through to the semi-finals, and we'll see if our Australians can progress all the way through the final. We'll see how we go.
Yeah, definitely. And over in Spain, we had back with Levante. Maty Ryan's team had their first win overnight. Then he kept a clean sheet in a 4-0 win. It was a crucial win as Levante's first win of the season. Obviously, Girona had two players sent off in that game as well, so it made it a bit of an easier night for Maty Ryan. But a massive 3 points because it's we expect Levante to be down that bottom half of the table in Spain. And Girona are dead set last now after a really good couple of seasons the previous years.
Yeah, 0 points as well.
Yeah, 0 points. I'm not sure what's happening there. What about Germany, mate? We've got some questions and thoughts over in Germany with our players from St. Pauli.
Yeah, Brian asked for some questions this afternoon for the podcast, and Brian, one of our followers, asked about Jackson Irvine. So St. Pauli, they lost their first game of the season 2-0 to Stuttgart. Connor Metcalf got 16 minutes off the bench. And the update from St. Pauli's manager was that Jackson Irvine missed with muscle trouble. Now, Irvine, as we mentioned before, he made the bench last week for St. Pauli, but then he's out again. So whether they're just managing him back or whether he's reflared one of those injuries, we're not too sure. But I guess we'll kind of watch and see what happens with Jackson Irvine. We know how crucial he is to the Socceroos mix. So hopefully he hasn't had any relapse of that injury and he's back sooner rather than later. But we'll keep an eye on that one. So thanks for
I just
the question, Brian.
Absolutely. And another key Socceroo, because obviously we're going to obviously get a selection soon for the next upcoming games for the Socceroos, Canada and America. Riley McGree's update too for Middlesbrough. It's a prolonged absence, but it's a deliberate attempt for Borough to ensure his comeback will be a successful one, is the news out of Borough. So a couple of key Socceroos injury management for both St. Pauli and Middlesbrough with Jackson Irvine and Riley McGree.
Yeah, if they can be managed right up to the World Cup, that's absolutely fine for us.
Fit and firing. Over in Netherlands, my friend, how are we going in the Eredivisie?
Let's start with NAC Breda versus Heracles. So Socceroos teammates Max Ballard and Aiden Hrustic went head-to-head. They both played 90 minutes, with Ballard's NAC Breda getting the bragging rights 2-1. Unfortunately, for Hrustic's side, Heracles, they're yet to gain a point so far this season. But looking at some of the stats coming out from a few of the different platforms, looks like Hrustic has been one of their best players. So positive signs for Hrustic, but let's hope that his team can start to progress up the table sooner rather than later. Down a division in the Netherlands, Cameron Pupion scored the winner in his side's 2-1 win over Almere City to remain unbeaten at the top of the table. Very nice goal as well. Just got the ball out of his feet and picked out the bottom corner of the far post. So he's a good finisher, Cam Pupion. So I'm very glad to see him playing again, and I'm enjoying his football. He's still very young, still only 21, so plenty of football in front of him. And then also in that division, Josh Nisbet played 90 minutes for Rota JC. Unfortunately, his side lost 4-1. All right. Do you want to take Portugal, mate?
Yeah, so over our friend from Santa Clara, 4 games unbeaten now. As we reported on last week, they had a great draw against Benfica with only 10 men. And this week, they've beat Alvareca with a late goal. And Anthony Carter played 32 minutes off the bench as he continues his progress and feel full fitness for Santa Clara. So another great result there, and that just moves them again further up the table. In Austria Vienna, we had 24 minutes off the bench for Noah Botic. Again, it seems to be his role at the moment as he tries to force his way in that starting lineup. But it's good to see he's still getting around that 20, 30 minutes every week, which is good. Over in Croatia, Hajduk Split, we've got Anthony Kalic got a few minutes off the bench, and Fran Karacic was an unused sub as Split go winless in 3, losing 2-0. And the boys, not only they been starting early in the year, but they obviously dropped back in the pecking order, and their team losing to 2-0 to Dynamo Zagreb. So, hopefully things can improve over there with Hajduk Split. In Switzerland, we got Sion. Scott Chipperfield's boy, Liam Chipperfield, scores in his side's 2-0 win in the Swiss Cup over Preston Bern, and they're now into the round of 32. He's not a bad goal sneak, Chief. That's he's scored a few times over there.
Yeah. I don't know about the quality of the Swiss league in comparison to some of the others, but he certainly seems to pop up. I'm sure he'd like a bit more game time than he gets, but good for him to get a run out and get a goal.
Definitely. And for the girls over in Sweden, Malmo, Courtney Nevin plays 90 minutes as her side picked up a 4-0 win. And they move now within 1 point of first with 8 games to go in a tight title contest there in Sweden. AIK, Jada Wyman, she concedes 2 as her side lost 2-1 in Faxo DFF. Vizio GIK, that's Danielle Gallick's team. She played another 90 minutes in her side's 2-0 loss. And there's Christian Stars. Amy Sayer plays a full game, and Remy Simpson is a substitute in late as they record another 2-1 win. So that was another good result there for the 2 girls. So lots of action there for the girls over in Sweden. There's plenty of them over there, and they're making a good fist of it. we've obviously will keep an eye out on Malmo's title push as they continue with 8 games to go. Over in Japan, we've seen Cerezo Osaka. For Pappas' side, the coaches, they drew 1-1 with Kashiwa Reysol, and now 4 matches unbeaten. Nice and solid mid-table position. And in big news over there, we've seen Yokohama F. Marinos struggle all year, but they had a big win to climb out of the relegation zone. They've just been hovering over that zone for a fair while. But Thomas Deng wasn't in the matchday squad, so no news on that one. USA, back to the States. We've got New York City, there's Charlotte. Mr. Consistent Aidan O'Neill gets 13 minutes off the bench. And Archie Goodwin, back from injury, plays 15 minutes off the bench. That was a quick injury recovery as New York City beat Charlotte 2-0. Now, that's Charlotte's first loss in a long time. So both teams are locked in that championship playoffs in that American system over there. So a good win there for Aidan O'Neill's side and Charlotte's first loss in a fair long time. I think they were 10-11 undefeated. DC United, they've been having struggles all year. They lost again 3-2 to Inter Miami. Kyle Rolls did play the full game as he continues to rack up the minutes, but Messi scores a double over there, beating DC United. For Nashville, Patrick Yazbek plays first half in Nashville's 3-2 loss in Orlando. And then Vancouver, Giuseppe Bavellino is again a late sub in Vancouver, go to second in the Western Conference with a 2-0 win over Sporting Kansas City. And the last wrap-up there in the NWSL for the girls, Portland Thorns, Mackenzie Arnold makes 6 saves in Portland's 1-1 draw with San Diego Wave, as Caitlin Torpey was an unused sub. So a bit of a wrap there from the United States.
There's a couple of games that I've got my eye on overnight, mate. Firstly, in China, you spoke last week about how tight that title race is over there. So that's one's going to kick off in a couple of minutes. No doubt you'll know the result by the time you listen to this. But Beijing Juan hosting Shanghai Port in that fixture tonight. So we might provide a few updates as we go. And then Chelsea versus Leicester. Very interested to see if Sam Kerr gets a few more minutes and can she get herself on the score sheet again. We mentioned AZ Alkmaar versus Feyenoord. So, yeah, interesting to see if Feyenoord can maintain their 100% record so far in the Eredivisie. But, yeah, it's going to be a tough game against AZ Alkmaar. We've got an all-Aussie clash in Austria. So Grazer AK taking on Rapid Vienna. So that's Jacob Italiano versus Marco Tilio. And then I mentioned this one before. So Gianni Stensnes returning from injury for Vikings. So they're taking on Mulder. So, yeah, I want to see him getting a couple of minutes back off the bench. And I'd be really interested to see how he goes and if he can get back to some of that good form he was showing before that ACL injury.
Yeah, definitely some big games tonight. Good luck over there, and we wish them well. As that's a pretty much wrap. As we had a bit of a split session with overseas overnight, so obviously a lot more games to come, and we'll report on that one early next week.
All right, we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back for part 2, we're going to talk about the Australian Championship and the big broadcast deal that was announced this week, as well as touch on a few of our national teams as well. We'll be back in a sec. If you like our content, why not give us a follow on the socials where we provide lots of updates between podcast episodes. We're most active on Instagram, Blue Sky, and X. So search the Aussie Game and you should be able to find us. All right, let's get back into it. All right, we're back for part 2 and we're going to start talking through the Australian Championship because they announced, Football Australia and SBS announced an exciting broadcast deal this week. I'm just going to read part of the statement. Football Australia and SBS today announced a landmark multi-year, multi-platform agreement to broadcast the inaugural Australian Championship on SBS, SBS On Demand, and SBS Viceland, delivering every moment live and free to fans across the nation. The historic agreement makes SBS the exclusive linear television home of the Australian Championship for at least the next 2 years, showcasing 18 matches on free-to-air television and live and free on SBS On Demand from the group stage through to the quarterfinals, semi-finals, and grand final. What were your immediate thoughts when you saw this one, mate?
Oh, fantastic. It's like the custodians of football are back together again. It's just, and it's so important. This model that they've got to deliver coverage, like Australian Championship really needed this free to air exposure, and they've got it. It's bang on, and they'll get a lot of people watching because obviously with a lot of interstate and out-of-state teams, I think this is just unbelievable. It's such an important key to the cog. So, and it's just so good to see SBS, a real traditional football broadcaster, back in the game, and with the custodians of some of these clubs that have been around for a long time, to bring it to life and it really expose the national game for what it is. I think it's positive, positive, positive. 3 ticks to me all around. What about yourself?
Yeah, I do agree with you completely. And when the news came out, there was very, very little negativity on social media, which is a very good indication that it's the right deal. And I think it's a great alignment, as you said, because a lot of people will reflect on the NSL days when SBS had the coverage, and a lot of these clubs haven't really been on that national stage since the days of the NSL. So it's a great alignment in that sense. I think we're going with a broadcaster that is going to advocate for the game, that's going to look after the game, and it's not just a money grab for them. They really have a passionate history about what they do with the game of football. We know that the legacy that Johnny Warren, Les Murray, and the likes have left behind with SBS, and that they're just going to do a good job. The free to air component was absolutely key for me because this is being a new product. If we put it behind a paywall, all of a sudden we're setting it up for failure. Whereas now people have no excuses not to be able to find these games. Yes, some of them are on the kind of secondary channels or on online channels, but everyone should be able to find these things these days with modern technology. So it shouldn't be a hindrance at all. And really, for the Australian Championship to succeed, we need that kind of everything working in alignment. We need attendances at the games. We need the broadcast deal. We need exciting football. We need all of this to be connected for it to be a success. And just on the free to air component as well, and we've touched on this before with the scheduling, particularly those Saturday games where they run it those early afternoon and then they lead into, say, the A-League. So if you're a fan of an A-League club but you live close enough to go watch an Australian Championship game, you can theoretically go down and watch the Australian Championship game and then get back to the pub or get back to your home to watch the A-League game being on free-to-air. And it's really because the A-League games on a Saturday evening and night, they're on free to air as well. So really, there's no excuses. You're not having to pay for anything, and you can watch football for 8, 9 hours straight, completely, without any hindrance. So I just think it's such a great alignment for all those different components, and I think it's a smart deal. It's a multi-year deal. They've locked it in, and just really no excuses for this competition not to thrive, and it really needs to.
Yeah, it's the perfect balance, and well said in your words. It's just like you said, it's just the perfect balance between what the game needs and what that competition directly offers, and it's just going to be at a perfect time slot for anyone to contribute and watch this, whether it's live at the ground or on TV, or or it allows people to watch their team, obviously, without having to worry about the cost of living pressures and vice versa. So, well said, and a great win for all football fans and football communities.
Yeah, so just to go through the actual schedule, which has been released by SBS. So the very first game, unfortunately, in one sense, but as I said, like you should be able to find these things. SBS Viceland are going to be the broadcast for the very first game, but then every other Friday night game is going to be on SBS On Demand Live. The Saturday games are really the key ones. So those are the 1 p.m. and 3 p.m. kickoffs. And they're the ones that are going to be on the main channel, SBS TV, but also available on SBS On Demand as well. Really good as well, smart move that from the semi-final onwards, so the two semis and the grand final, all those games are going to be on the full main channel. So, and even the quarterfinals, 2 of the 4 games are going to be on the full channel. The other's going to be on SBS On Demand live. And then all the Sunday games will be on SBS On Demand live throughout the whole campaign. So I think for fans of the NPL teams as well, they're used to kind of watching on YouTube. This was if they can't get out to the games themselves, that's an opportunity for them to watch. So they're kind of used to that idea of that streaming service, and I think we're all kind of getting there at the moment. So it's not going to be a huge hindrance. But the most important thing is that we're not putting it behind a paywall. We're not asking anyone. We're not giving anyone an excuse, I suppose, not to follow this championship and get right behind it, because we just know how important it is for it to be successful. It's a short stint, even for the teams. You know, it's only 3 home games, so if you can commit to it, we kind of implore you to get out there and support as many games as possible, because the only way it's going to succeed is if the Australian football community support it. So let's hope that that's the case. But SBS jumping on board as a broadcaster is a huge tick.
Yeah, definitely, and I'm sure everyone will support it. These clubs, or most of the clubs, the custodian clubs, have been around for a long time, so it's a chance to rebuild their brand and put it out there. So we wish all clubs all the best for this oncoming season. So it's one definitely to look forward to as we
as we mentioned last week. Sorry to cut you off, mate. But,
yeah, it's okay.
You know, the likes of Bruno Fornaroli jumping into the Australian Championship. There's some really, really exciting players that are going to be playing in this Australian Championship. So it's going to be good football. It's going to be very competitive. Every club's going to want to be the inaugural champion of the Australian Championship. So it's going to be pretty cutthroat, and yeah, it's all set up to be a great competition.
Yeah, you've seen in the Hahn Cup how close these state league teams are, so they're not that far off. So, but definitely one to watch to see whether this competition can progress for the future and be part of our pyramid. All right, mate, we'll move on. We've got a very special challenge, Chiefs Challenge, obviously back. Obviously, you want to go through your Chiefs Challenge from 2 weeks ago?
Yeah, 2 weeks ago when we did it, I gave you the questions, and you couldn't quite crack it on the spot. It is tough to crack on the spot, but the answer was Paul Trimboli. Actually, one of our followers, he guessed it within a few minutes.
Oh,
So
really?
yeah,
Good on him.
straight onto it. So I figured I might have to try and make it a little bit harder this week. So yeah, see if I can
I want to
stump
see the
anyone.
picture of the magazine where he's on. That's the one I
Yeah,
want to see. I'm
yeah,
gonna have to look
yeah.
that up.
All right, so Chiefs challenge for this week. It has got a bit of a theme as to some of the things we spoke about. So that might be your first clue. All right, let's rip in. There's going to be 4 clues. So number 1, this player played for Portsmouth in the 90s. Second clue is he won the NSL Championship with Sydney, Croatia in 1986. Number 3, played in the Malaysia Premier League. And number 4, scored once in 29 appearances for the Socceroos. Now, that's all the clues you get this week, mate, because I've made it far too easy before.
You've got me. Portsmouth, 1990s. Yeah, and then never playing in Malaysia. No, you got me on that one. Portsmouth. I just don't see that Portsmouth Malaysia link, but I'm sure I'll have to unravel that one through the week, and hopefully the viewers are all over it. They've definitely got more knowledge than me on this one. You definitely made it harder. So good luck to all the viewers. Hopefully you can get this one and put in your vote for Chiefs Challenge, who you think that player is.
Yeah, I'll pop that up on social media during the week. So if you see that pop up and you think you might know it, drop a comment, have a guess. All right. While we're talking through this segment, we're going to touch on the national teams. There's obviously not a lot happening. You mentioned before the Socceroos squad won't be too far away from being picked. But something that did pique my interest during the week, there was an announcement from FIFA that they're going to combine the September and October international breaks with teams playing 4 games in that period rather than 2. So that's going to start from 2026. I felt this was probably a good thing for the Socceroos. You know, less travel time, not needing to come out twice during that period, and they have more time together. There's actually no qualifiers in that period for Australia, but if they continue on that cycle, there no doubt will be as we prepare for other qualification periods. But they can use that winner next year to prepare for the 2027 Asian Cup. But what do you think of that in terms of extending that, or combining that September and October period so we get to play 4 games? Because it is so rushed when we fly these players out, and we saw it in the recent Soccer Ashes series that we're flying players out and we're expecting them to you know be up and at 'em 2 days later to play a game, and then, the minute the game finishes, over there in Auckland, they're all back on planes flying various places around the world, and we really did see the effect that that had with a lot of them not starting, that had been starting or not playing at all, or a couple of minutes off the bench, so I think it's a positive.
Yeah, the impact's huge, not just for Australia, but for all countries. South America is another one with large distance to covers, and FIFA had to react, and they have. Look at our Socceroos. We got Canada on the 11th of October, America on the 15th. But we're down at the crunch end of the World Cup qualifiers for a lot of countries, and it's just too short of a turnaround, like you said, and the time's too vital. This is you're actually qualifying for a main event here, and I think FIFA's listened to a lot of countries and federations' voices on this one, and just come up with a smart decision. And hopefully, we see similar windows like this in the future. Because, as you said, but like the boys got out here Tuesday, Wednesday before a Friday game. By the time you meet, you got one sessions just, and we had a lot of changes in that, and it just did make sense. But obviously, you see the improved performance over time when we went over to Auckland. So I think it's a bonus especially for the far reach countries. It'll definitely help South America, Asia, Oceania teams definitely, and because Europe's got the ability just to be so close. So I think for the rest of the world, it's a massive win and just a smart decision to go forward.
Yeah, I was just looking at the who we played in those windows in 2024. So we played that game against Bahrain that we lost on the Gold Coast. And then we went over to Indonesia, and then in the next window in October, we hosted China in Adelaide, and then played Japan away. So in theory, those 4 games would have been combined into one window. So yeah, it just makes it so much easier for us. And as you said, include South America and other Asian countries in that bracket, who are the ones that are probably the most affected traveling from Europe. So it's just going to make it a whole lot easier for all those countries. But also that means that they're all on a level playing field. But I think the hard thing is that when we do play against other Asian opponents, a lot of those countries have players based in their countries, so they're not really pulling a whole lot of players from different parts of the world. Whereas the way that we have it, and of course we love the fact that it is the case, but we're pretty much pulling our whole squad from Europe these days, sprinkling from America, but mainly they're all coming from Europe doing that long haul trip. So yeah, it's just going to offer us a huge benefit going forward. And I think, credit to FIFA for making the decision.
Yeah, definitely. It's just common sense applies in this one. So it's just going to benefit everybody, and especially us being where we're located. So it's really good news going forward. I think it'll be a massive difference. All right. We've got the under-17s, so a little bit of an update there. They had their final game of friendlies over against Japan, and the under-17 Joeys lost 4-0 to Japan in that game. They were 0 at half-time, very competitive against Japan, but a lot of second-half substitutions obviously derailed our formation, and we made a few too many errors there to get beat 4-0 to Japan. A lot of people would probably be panicking, but it is a friendly. We did also beat Wales midweek 1-0, so that's obviously noted. But getting over there with a 3-team tournament over there for the 17 Joeys will only help them and benefit them. And the starting 11 for me looked pretty good and pretty solid. It's just that depth. But it's like I said before, under 17s is a very challenging age to try to get your groups together. So friendlies like this is only going to help them because they've got some crucial qualifiers coming up in the future.
Yeah, it's overall the tournament, 2 losses and 1 win, but I think for the most part it was about the experience, getting this group together, and yeah, the more cohesion they get, the better that they're going to be in the future when they start to qualify for these Asian Cups, and then hopefully that doubles up as a World Cup qualification as well. So yeah, just pleasing to see them playing regularly. And then, yeah, we do have some of our younger Matilda teams as well in preparation at the moment as well. So, yeah, the more time that they get together, because it's something just we haven't seen in the past enough of, I don't think. So, yeah, credit to Football Australia for putting them into that tournament. And let's hope that that can be an annual thing at the very least in preparation.
Yeah, it's definitely much needed at that age group. They definitely need to tour more or play more games across Asia at least. We want to go into these tournaments ready, and I think that's a big gap. So more games are better. And like I said, it's very difficult to get a formation, get a playing style with all these players that are probably playing at national level for the first time, or very new to playing for the first time in the 17s there. All right, Chief, we've got a really good question coming up.
Isn't it a good question? And thank you
Great
so
question.
much to the Australia Soccer News account. And I don't know if we're going to be able to answer it in full tonight, but it's potentially a bonus episode that we might do in the future to talk about it in a bit more detail. But the question is, how can Australian football come back to life in, and how do we go about getting bums in seats? Do you want to start?
If I started, I probably wouldn't finish. But no, look, it's a fantastic question. So thank you for Australian Soccer News sending that through. That you can see through their passion that they're looking at the same things as we are. Look, I'm going to put it in three. I'm going to try to keep it simple as best as I can, because obviously I reckon that would need a full episode on itself. What would I think that would make the difference, though? I'm going to put it simple. First one, you need a product. So at the moment, our A-League isn't the full product. So what can we do to enhance that? I think is the $1,000,000 question, but I think it's simple. I think it's right in front of us. I think promo and relegation, if it ever gets up and running, it'll create theatre, it'll create atmosphere, it'll create the up and down, it'll give clubs coming up, it'll bring interest on all levels to try to get up that pyramid and keep the A-League clubs honest too at the other end. I think if you want theatre or a product, what best way, if you look at some of the top leagues like the Premier League, the relegation, the Championship playoff to get into the Premier League, all these are they're theatre, and they're what people, they talk about it, they watch it from every level, not just the people within their own club. So if you want theatre, you've got to go create a product that people are going to create extra interest. So there's probably one. I could probably elaborate a lot more on that, but I think promo and relegation, if we want to see a unique broadcasting or put people who are going to watch stuff, you need to involve all communities. This promo relegation will work. There's a lot of detractors around it, and I get it with the cost and all that, but we need something that's different and unique to Australia that we can see works overseas. Number two, it's all about the juniors for me. I think every state league team or every junior team should be getting tickets to the A-League. Childs, anyone under 12 should have free access pass to all A-League. I think they should get, we should invest in this area. I think if you want to grow young fans, all these people around Western Sydney, Perth, Adelaide should all get an automatic pass as an under 12 as part of their registration and fees. Why not? Like, obviously, you've seen many ticketing systems work where you can register your players if you're worried about capacities and vice versa. But imagine if your kid's got a free A-League pass, only the child, obviously, into A-League size, and they can register to apply to go to these games for free under 12. So I think it'd be a great initiative. And probably third, our product needs to improve as an A-League. The salary cap hinders us, but obviously you've seen how much money we've lost over the last few years. So they've had some rationale in there, but we can do it. It's worked before. You've seen the A-League hits and peaks off our national teams, off World Cups, off Asia Cup or interest. So it can work. It's just a matter of trying to get the A-League to a higher standard. We know we're not going to keep the best of the best, but there's a lot of players around that can still be competitive. But the only way you're going to enhance that bums on seats is to try to get that money back reinvested where it's needed, which is marquee players and the retention for a little bit longer contracts on these players. to create a little bit more history. You've seen Adelaide, the latest club, that have let go 3 or 4. Archie Goodwin's a prime example. People would have gone and watched them, but again, they offered a little bit more money in America. Is the standard any higher? Yeah, it is rising over in America, and we may need to look at that logistically in the future, but that's another topic. But they're probably the 3 things without going too deep into it. So probably number 1 for me is obviously promo relegation. 2, under 12 players should all get a pass, and 3, we need to invest a little bit more money in the salary cap to get the retain the players and get some marquees.
I'm going to touch on a few of yours before I jump into mine. So pro relegation, I agree with. I think there is an opportunity there to connect the pyramid. And if we do, it's going to be genuinely exciting for the Australian football community, because I think one of the best parts about other associations around the world where there is a pyramid, realistically, your local club could get to the top of the pyramid. We don't have that at the moment. It's an opportunity to buy yourself into the top. But if your local club had the aspiration to climb up the pyramid, and we've seen it all around the world, it happens, I think that would get more community involved. The second part, in terms of under 12s coming in, I think, yeah, fantastic initiative. I think if there's any concerns about too many seats being taken up, you just cap it. But then if you cap it and someone misses out 1 week, they're just going to get in early. It's simple supply and demand. So, you bring more people into it, and it gains more interest in the product. So I think, yeah, fantastic idea. But yeah, maybe if clubs are worried about the finances by letting in so many people for free, just put a cap on it, and it'll be absolutely fine. I think in terms of the quality of the league, what I will say about it is that I think too many people sit on the outside of the league and put it down. I would just suggest to people that if you want to actually watch it for a full year. See some of the players. Yes, we don't have the big marquee players that we've had before, but we do have quality. And you see the fact that players come through the A-League and then they get sold to clubs in the Championship or in Scotland, and they go there straight away and make an impact. It shows that the very top level of the A-League is good. And we're going to see it again in the next off season. You can already see some of these young players coming through, starting to show themselves. So I think there's, at the very top, yes, of course, there's players that just get recycled through clubs, but it probably happens all around the world. But we know we don't have the best of the best because we're a selling league, but so is every other league around the world, just about. So
Very true.
I would just suggest that people actually give it a full good season to watch, and then if you still don't think it's any good, well, then that's fair. That's your call. But yeah, I would suggest that people watch it in full. I'm going to look at the first part of the question. So, how can Australian football come back to life? I would argue that in a lot of senses, it is alive. When you look at our national teams, when you look at the development of the younger teams coming through, there is a lot of life and a lot of hope in that sense. So I get that the domestic competition could be better, and I think that's directed to what you said, mate, in terms of promo and relegation. I think that would really bring it to life. Getting rid of the salary cap. I get that they're concerned about teams going under, like we've seen with Western United recently, or not going under, but in their case, they're having a season off. But yeah, I think we probably need to get to a point where clubs need to stand on their own 2 feet. And if we're not allowing teams to get promoted through, we're actually turning people who want to invest in the game away. So I think there's a lot of people, wealthy people out there that love Australian football and love their local club, that want to see it to succeed to its top level. And we're probably not allowing any of those investors to do that. So, and look, in terms of bums on seats, I think, look, it's about marketing the product. I would really hope that as we get close to the start of this A-League season coming up, because there's a lot of excitement around it. When you follow it closely, you can see the players, but I think the issue is that people like you and I, mate, that aren't following it closely enough, and you have to go looking for the news because it's not in the mainstream media. So it's all there, all the opportunities there. It's just about how we market it. So look, there's lots of opportunities. As I said, that's kind of my spiel on it, but we could go on for days and days, and probably does need a dedicated episode somewhere down the line. But yeah, really appreciate the question from Australia Soccer News. Yeah, it got us thinking and got us a bit excited about what's happening. But look, yeah, I'm sure that we'd love to hear everyone's opinion on those questions as well. Maybe it's a good opportunity for people to share their opinions on where they think we're actually at as a game in this country.
Yeah, I like your point, Chief, on come back to life. If you just look at the Matildas last World Cup, biggest sporting event watched in history. Um,
Mm.
the Socceroos are heavily followed as well. Our national games, and we've got an exciting squad coming up for the World Cup, the extension of the World Cup. The under-20s is doing great, the 23s is doing great. Across all the Matildas, we've seen we won the Asian Cup for the girls as well. So all that's progressing well on a national level. It's just a matter of how well we can support it, obviously at home and domestically. Come up with not change too much, but we've seen things that work, but we've seen the dip a lot, and it's just sustaining a consistent product. And I think the challenge is for Australian football, which it always has been. We kind of reward the top, there's we we reward them with like, oh, here you go, you start at the top. No one starts at the top. They should never have the
Yeah,
right to start at the top. Everyone should be on the bottom and work your way through, as long as the pyramid supports that. And that's why Premier Relegation or Australian Championship, or I think all the custodian clubs are all very well supported throughout history. Can they keep up with the next generation? Well, I think there's a lot of players that play for those clubs will always sustain it. And you've seen that with Heidelberg and Avondale. They're progressive clubs. We've just got to keep giving them the opportunities to succeed. And that's what'll bring it back to life and put bums on seats, because people will follow that story. Heidelberg's stories are fantastic, and Avondale and all those custodian clubs that went well in the Hahn Cup. And they provided entertainment. And yeah, look, it's there. It's the bursting bubble, isn't it? It's always been there for Australia. We just haven't been able to consistently capture it, because we seem to get a roadblock before we move 2 steps forward and another roadblock. But you know, with your support and comments like that, and you're passionate about it as what we are, we can bring this back to life and get some more exposure out there for not only the players that are making it in Australia, then travelling overseas, but progressing through the local leagues and giving clubs the opportunity to succeed on their own platform. I think it's really important to note too, the Socceroos had, I think I think they made a mention that most of those players were in A-League. 11 of them were last year. Yeah.
yeah.
So it's alive and well. The product's there. The players are great, as you can see by the amount of attention Europe and Asia and America, are attracting these players to play overseas.
Yeah, well, that's the point that I was going to make, mate. You can't. I find it really difficult to listen to people that love the Socceroos, but then can't give any kind of interest to the A League, because the majority of the players that end up playing for the Socceroos come through the A League system. They might make a couple of moves overseas before they actually land in the Socceroos, but that's where they come from. So yeah, it's hard to listen to that for me personally. I was just looking at because I knew it was a good crowd, but the MPL Victoria Grand Final attracted almost 14,000 fans
Oh, how
um,
cool's that? Well done.
at Lakeside Stadium. So, like as you were saying, those clubs, they have that huge supporter base. So it's just a matter of that would probably be even. You imagine some kind of look at the game in England to jump from the Championship up to the Premier League, and how much interest there is in that game. Could you imagine that kind of equivalent in Australia to get up into the A League, and what kind of crowds you might be able to draw for those types of games? So the interest is certainly there. I think we just have to embrace it a little bit more and work out the way we do it. But there's lots of reasons why that can't happen tomorrow, for example. But hopefully, the powers that be are working towards some kind of a model like that.
Yeah, definitely. There's always hope. That we've created so many great memories. Coming back to 2006 and really the evolutional change that we had for the Socceroos. And then obviously we've seen that a few years later with the Matildas. So, yep, it's onward and upward. And yeah, just get out there and support your local teams and support SBS and support those clubs that are trying to have a crack with whoever you support. And, you'll see it come through to fruition at some stage. And hopefully we can get the right structure that will support it.
Totally agree, mate. And thank you so much for the question. It certainly got us talking on the subject. As you said, please share your thoughts as well. We'd love to hear your thoughts and opinions on that question. All right, mate, that might do us for part 2. We're going to come back for part 3 and we're going to talk everything that's happening in the A-Leagues. We'll be back in a sec.
All right, see you soon.
Thanks for listening to the Aussie Game Podcast. If you enjoy our content, we'd really appreciate you giving us a rating or a review on your preferred podcast platform. And if you do know of any Australian football fans that might enjoy it as well, sharing the podcast would mean a lot to us. All right, let's get back to the show. We're back for part 3, and we're going to talk all things A-Leagues, Mopper. Let's start with Melbourne Victory. Big marquee signing this week. Juan Mata has come across from the Western Sydney Wanderers and he's signed for the upcoming season. I personally think this is a fantastic signing for Melbourne Victory. Maybe you're going to tell me otherwise, but
No, look,
go?
I just I think he'll suit the system better at Melbourne Victory than Western Sydney. I think the formation will suit him better. So I think you'll see more football, more positive stories out of Waimata. We know his history and experience, so I just think it's a better club fit for him. So I wish him well. I think he'll do a good job, and probably right off last year, just didn't know where to fit him in, and I don't think it was the right move for Western Sydney. But Melbourne Victory, different formation, different style. So we wish him well in the upcoming season. Chief, I just have to cut you off. We've had Shanghai Port. We received a report on the Chinese Super League. Shanghai Port's gone up 1-0 in the 7th minute against Beijing Graham in the top of the table clash over in the Chinese Super League. So I just thought I'd just give you a quick update.
Thanks, mate. Come on, Muskie. Let's do this. All right, My thoughts on Juan Mata. I agree with you in terms of him fitting the formation with Alan Sturgis playing a 4-4-2 at the Wanderers last season. Certainly didn't fit that system and played him as a 6 or playing him out wide and just didn't work. But 4-2-3-1 we expect to be played at Melbourne Victory. Sitting that 10 pocket, I think he'll do well. Don't expect him to start lots of games necessarily, but I think coming off the bench and when you need to break the game open, he might be able to find that pass with players, with player movement around him. I think probably my biggest take on him signing is the commercial value of him coming in. I know that it was reported that he was on a $350,000 at the Western Sydney Wanderers last season, so you'd expect that price would have come down for Melbourne Victory. But I think there's a huge opportunity for Victory to use him commercially, have lots of different events where you use his face and roll him out as the World Cup winner, Juan Mata, sponsorship, plenty of opportunities there off field. I think for them to take advantage of what he can do. So I think in that sense, I think it's a great signing, but I also think Victory's got so many promising young attacking players that he'll be able to impart plenty of his knowledge on them as well. So I think overall, good pick up for Victory, better fit than it was for the Wanderers. And I can see that, him staying in the game longer term, and potentially Victory are looking at an opportunity for him to stay connected to the game post-career as well, which I don't think would be the worst thing either.
Yeah, no, I look forward to seeing him play. And as we said, Victory will no doubt kick off with an exciting new formation for him that actually fits his style. We've also got rising stars Daniel Gravosky and Joshua Insera have extended their contracts until the end of 2027-2028. Both have been selected in under-20 World Cup squad. So that's great news for Victory on that half.
Yeah, agree with that one. Yeah, two very promising young players. And yeah, both obviously picked in that under-20 World Cup squad. So you can see Victory starting to invest a bit more in their youth, which is very pleasing to see, something that they probably haven't done as well as they could have in the past. Let's look at their women's team. They've made a signing this week. So Kiwi fullback Zoe McMeekin. She's come in for the upcoming A-League women's season. And then this was an interesting one that I saw that Paul Barber, he's accepted a role on the board of directors at the club. So with almost this was in part of the statement. So with almost 3 decades working in professional football, Barber has been the chief executive officer of Brighton and Hove Albion in the Premier League for more than 13 years, and also has served as deputy chairman under Tony Bloom on the board of Brighton since 2018. So together, Barbara and Bloom have had a tremendous impact on the growth and success of Brighton. So smart move, I thought, for Melbourne Victory, putting someone with that kind of experience. And we know how well Brighton operate in terms of identifying talent, bringing them in, developing them, and then moving them on. So if Victory can follow that same kind of model, I think they're onto something there.
Oh, that's a massive announcement, Chief, and I think will only benefit Victory. His experience will add value, much needed value, not only for Victory but for the Australian game.
Yeah, I agree. And we'll move on to Western Sydney Wanderers. This one was announced just after we finished recording last week. So Angus Thurgate signs a 3-year deal. It was obviously Western United last year. He seemed to be the player that every fan wanted for their club. But Western Sydney Wanderers have been able to land him. So yeah, very positive for them. And I think he's going to be a good fit in that system. We mentioned now Marta wasn't a good fit, but good to see Thurgate across there. And I think, yeah, he really has the opportunity. We know they lost Oscar Priestman not that long ago, so good replacement for Priestman to come straight in.
Yeah, definitely. They're just trying to find a good balance there. Good signing by Western Sydney, and yeah, hopefully they'll be looking to fill some gaps after that. Yeah, big loss, as you said, with Priestman moving on.
Yeah, they had a 1-1 preseason draw with the Mariners just the other day. So Brandon Borrello scored for the Wanderers and Arthur DeLima scored for the Mariners. The women's team actually made a few signings as well. So they've signed Chinese stars Wang Ying and Yuan Kong from Guangdong. And they've also signed 17-year-old midfielder Millie Bennett on a 2-year deal as well. So, yeah, positive moves over there at Western Sydney Wanderers. If we look across the city, over on the harbour side, plenty of action happening at Sydney FC. I think we say this every week, but there's always plenty of action at Sydney FC. So let's talk about what's happening. So Douglas Costa, we kind of teased this last week, but it's been announced officially. He's left by mutual consent. This one just came in this afternoon. Ben Garuccio signed on a 2-year deal. So he was obviously the captain of Western United, and his former teammate Abel Wallity is going to join him as well, signing a 4-year deal. So some really exciting inclusions there for Sydney FC. Ben Garuccio, I think, is going to strengthen their defence immensely, and Abel Wallity is just an exciting young talent. So hopefully we get to see plenty of him this season as well.
Yeah, I think Ben offers huge experience. The 30-year-old defender from Western United, 69 games over the last 4 years. So he's 100 Australian under 21 and 100 Australian under 23 international, not capped at senior level, but has been around at Hearts of Middleton and Melbourne City as well. So big step improvement there for Sydney FC with much needed in defence.
Yeah, they've also signed 28-year-old former Real Madrid and La Liga striker Victor Campuzano on a 2-year contract as well. So, yeah, we spoke previously about Ufuk Talay not having everything he wanted there, but they seem like they're starting to add more and more to their squad. So, yeah, they could be in for a decent season. I'm sure they'll be hoping to finish better than the 7th that they finished last season as
Yeah,
well.
and
So,
Victor's only 28, Chief, and Sporting Gijon is where he's come from. 110 appearances, 16 goals. Played for Espanyol and Real Madrid B team. So yeah, Spain under 19 international, but not capped at senior level. But yeah, it'll be a very handy forward for Sydney FC.
yeah, well, good competition up there. We know Al Hassan Touré's come in as well. So, yeah, good to have that healthy competition within the squad. Their women's team they've lit up their front line with the exciting capture of 23-year-old Canadian-born Haiti international forward, Laurie Ann Moise. So yeah, we expect Sydney FC to have a good season for the women. So they've added more exciting talent up front.
Yeah, definitely. They've definitely gone South American, North American, haven't they? They've definitely picked up some good players from there. So Sydney FC continue to build with some young Matildas under 17s, under 20 players as well. So looking very strong to try and challenge Melbourne City, who have been the setting the standard in the last Ninja League.
And let's talk Melbourne City. Do you want to talk through their ACL elite match against Sanfrecce Hiroshima?
Yeah, so we talked about the next opponent earlier on with Vissil having a 3-0 win over Muscat's side, and unfortunately Melbourne City went down to Sanfrecce 2-0. They struggled obviously to maintain meaningful possession. Melbourne City, obviously, you've got to understand that Sanfrecce is in the back end of the season. We haven't even started yet. Melbourne City also struggled to get through the press. They looked best though when they found Caputo, and he worked off well to hold up play. Kai True and Matt Leckie played strong roles in holding midfielders, and they did have a few chances late, but just couldn't score. It was hard playing an opposition in season, which is always going to be our biggest challenge. And the gap between the salary cap of what the A League offers to the J League is huge. So, look, they were competitive without, but getting the biscuits and losing 2-0. So I think it's a solid start. But yeah, we said before we'd love to see A League teams succeed in Asia, but I think at the moment the gap's a little bit too big. On the positive
What do
point,
you make of Kai Truan and Matt Leckie playing as the holding midfielders? You got a centre back who can fill in there, and you've got Matt Leckie, who's a winger or a forward, who did a job there in the grand final for them last season. But I wonder if that's where he's going to be expecting to play in the upcoming season.
yeah, look, I think it's fantastic for Kai Truan. I think that's probably a role he'll need to try to look at. With the amount of depth we've got central defence, you've got to be adaptable if you want to make the Socceroos, and why not deploy him in those roles? I'm sure Popper would have been happy with that. To see if you can test him out, especially in transition, for Kytron. I think we've seen Leckie, his experience and his age obviously offers great value there. But he'll try to stifle Sanfrecce, Melbourne City, but unfortunately they're just a little bit too quick on the ball. And we've seen with the J League sides, they just possess the ball so well, it's really difficult to get it off them and really hard to use it too when we transition. But I think it's a good step for Truan. I think the more flexibility he has, the better chance he's got of making the Socceroos squad, especially now, like we said, the second selection's coming up soon for Canada and America. It'd be interesting. I'm sure Kai Truan, if he was playing earlier, probably would have been on those fringes of Socceroos side.
I think probably to his benefit, if he does end up playing in that holding midfield, going back to a centre back where the game's in front of him will actually be easier for him rather than harder. So I don't think that'll be a big deterrent. Might just, as you said, give Popovic another thought as to potentially putting him in there.
Yeah, well, he's definitely in that top 30, conversation, isn't he? So
Yeah.
I'm glad he's playing Asian Champions League because you need to be exposed against that higher Asian quality. So I think it's a good sign that he's playing it. And Melbourne City's got a few more games, obviously, as they lead up to the A-League start.
And then
All
there's
right.
a couple more signings for Melbourne City as well. So 15-year-old winger Akeem Gerald, there's lots of hype about this kid. He's committed to a 3-year deal through to the end of the 27-28 season with an option to extend for a further 2 years. And also during the week, they confirmed the return of 16-year-old defender Bessien Kutleshi. He wasn't in the most recent Joey's squad, but was in the Asian Cup squad. So, another couple of good pickups and extensions there in the case of Gerald for Melbourne City. And then they just continue to bolster their women's side as well. So 27-year-old forward and Nigerian international Chinaza Uchendu, she's come in ahead of the A-League women's season. And also 28-year-old English defender Ellie Wilson signs for the upcoming season. So I mentioned this on before. I think they're really just trying to build for that Asian Champions League campaign as well as the A-League as well. So yeah, positive signs for Melbourne City women's team.
Yeah, they'll be looking for the double. They're looking for the treble, actually.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, they lost in the final of the Asian Champions League last year, and semi-final. Yeah, so
Yeah.
they'll be looking to redeem themselves. They're such a strong squad. Melbourne City there. Yeah, but they're setting the standard, which is what you need these teams to do.
Yep. The other team in Asian football this week were the Macarthur Bulls. So their ACL 2 match versus Taipo, they lost 2-1. They started really poorly, conceding from a corner after only 3 minutes. They had 74% of possession in the first half, but couldn't really make it count. The game really turned just before half time when Callum Talbot was sent off for being the last man. With a straight red card for him. They conceded again in the 66th minute, but got one back, which was an own goal in the 70th minute. They had plenty of opportunities late, particularly with Harry Sawyer on the field. They just couldn't quite find him. He had a distinct height advantage over their opponents, but disappointing start to their season. I take the point that they're not in season, which would be disappointing, but I would still expect with the quality that they had on the field to get the job done. But they just need to focus now on winning their home games and making sure that they progress through to the next stage.
Yeah, they're definitely going to have to look at their approach, aren't they? It's hard because you're looking for friendlies in that Asian, but they're all at the end of their season,
Yeah.
and they're all, and that's the challenge that they're going to face. Maybe a slightly different approach, but that game out of the way, hopefully they can just move forward.
Yeah, I just want to read to you as well. This is a quote, and it shows probably how important this competition is. But this was a quote from the A-League's website regarding prize money for the ACL2, and I'll just read it out. So it said, judging by what the Sky Blues, being Sydney FC, earned last season, MacArthur could well be in for a substantial payday should they go deep in the competition. Sydney FC pocketed 300,000 US dollars, which equates to around 450,000 Australian dollars for just qualifying for the group stages last year. And should Serjovski's men manage to go all the way this season, then they could be looking at a windfall in the region of 4.92 million Australian dollars. Now, of course, that means that they need to beat the opponent from the east, which normally has some strong teams coming out of it. But even if they were to get through and make the final, it's significant money and what that could do for an A-League club. I'm sure that they would have ambitions to get as far as they can in this competition.
Oh, you said it in one, 4.92 million. Wow. That's
Yeah.
unbelievable. So, yeah, they'll be wanting to do everything they can. And I just guess we're going to try to find a way to try to support them in supporting in those competitions. It's really going to be difficult with our salary cap being decreased and at a all-time level low. So, anyway, some challenges for them, but the prize at the end of the day is there, and they're definitely good enough in that ACL too, looking at the team. So, hopefully they can bounce back and get in that market.
It's an interesting thing because I know the J League are actually switching their seasons around to align with Europe. So they'll be aligned with us as well. So they're going to be following the same pattern post next year's World Cup as well. But potentially, as we get more in season, a few of those teams are going to be out of season. So then does that come back into our favour potentially?
Yeah, possibly. They got knocked out of the Hahn Cup. It didn't help either. Like, maybe if they had a couple more games under their belt, higher competition. I don't know. They're going to have to look at something. I definitely think the salary cap inhibits our growth. So you never know, though. That could all change with us. Just, we sustain the losses and have paid that back. Hopefully, they can just lift it up so some of these teams can compete on that level because they are up against it from a financial point.
Yeah, definitely, mate. All right, let's move on to Adelaide United. They've signed attacking midfielder Juan Muniz Gallego on a 3-year contract. I believe he's like in his 30s, maybe 32. So there was a few eyebrows raised in terms of a 3-year contract for someone of that age, but obviously they like him if they're willing to commit to a 3-year contract with him. So, and I found this quote during the week from Reds coach Ayrton Andrioli. He was asked about losing 4 players to the Under-20 World Cup in Chile. He said, "We're a victim of our own success because it's a great reward for the boys to represent their country. It also creates opportunities for other players in the squad. For us, age doesn't matter. If you're ready, you'll get your chance." So I thought that was fantastic, whether he means that or not. But I think as a young player coming through Adelaide United, you'd love to hear that statement from your coach that, if you're showing that you're ready, that you'll get your opportunity.
Yeah, you've seen the Socceroos. I think they had 4 representatives in the starting 11, and the progress and that we've seen from the Adelaide development is probably one of the best in Australia. So yeah, no, onward, upward, and if with that attitude, they're going to continue to support and thrive, aren't they? Like as you said, next one up. It's great. It's good
Yeah.
to see, and well done by the club.
Yep. A couple of women's signings as well. So Amelia Macris, she's joined on a three-year contract. Earlier this year, she made 3 appearances for the Combank Young Matildas at the Asian Women's Championship in Vietnam, scoring once. So she was part of that successful team. And they've also brought in young attacker Lara Gooch on a 2-year contract. She was with the Jets previously. Perth Glory have made some exciting pickups. We mentioned a couple of weeks back about the exciting Western United prospects that were available. So they brought in one of them, Reece Bozanovsky. He signed on a 2-year deal. So he's an under 20 and under 23 international who enjoyed a breakout season for Western United last year, starting 25 games. I was surprised by that. Actually, I didn't think he started so many, but that's a huge amount of games to start. And he scored an impressive 5 goals and claimed 2 assists. So really good pickup for Perth Glory as they look to build their squad. And then another former Western United player, defender Charbel Shamoon, he's also signed a 2-year deal. So yeah, good pickups I thought there from Perth Glory. They've obviously finished last season, so they'll be looking for huge improvement.
Yeah, he's been in the Western United setup there for 5 years, and an under 20 international and under 23 Australian international. So he's only 21. So it's a fantastic signing. Perth need those types of players as a defensive midfielder. Will probably slot straight in. So and those boys will probably get plenty of game time over there. So good luck to both of them.
Yep, and just the women signing, Emma Tovar has signed for the upcoming season for their women's side. Another Western United player has landed in Brisbane. 22-year-old Jordan Lawton scored one of the goals of the season. An absolutely crazy running bicycle kick that he scored last year. But he's much more than that. Just that highlight reel is an exciting young talent. So good to see him find a home after moving on from Western United. They've also brought in defender Houston Salas on a season-long loan, and they've also picked up Matthew Dench for the upcoming season. So Dench is a 21-year-old who moves up to Brisbane from NPL Victoria side Oakley Cannons, where he made 26 appearances. So good that the A-League clubs are actually looking at those NPL clubs because we saw how well they performed in the Australia Cup, and we can see that a few of them can make the step up, which is fantastic to see.
Yeah, we said Brisbane might be a smoky there, mate. We said Newcastle's a moving club this year, but Brisbane I don't think will be too far behind. They've made some good, significant signings.
I'm excited to see what they do next season. Again, probably one of those ones that can only improve. But yeah, Michael Valkanis at the reins, and they've brought in some good players. So we'll see what they can do. On the women's team, we mentioned these sisters, the Fryer sisters, a couple of weeks back, but fan favourite and Matilda Sean Fryer, she's rejoined the club on a loan from Wolfsburg for the upcoming season. She didn't make her debut for Wolfsburg all that long ago, but she finds herself back in the A-League women's competition for the upcoming season.
All right. And over at Wellington Phoenix, we've got signed Kiwi fullback Dan Edwards for the upcoming Isuzu A-League season. The 27-year-old has played semi-professionally in Melbourne for the past 5 seasons and joins the Knicks from the National Premier League, which is what you're saying, just the previous club there. And he was from Victoria Premier's Avondale FC. So obviously spotted him out pretty quick.
Canberra United, they've brought in Sasha Grove, another one that's moved on from Western United. She's a fan favourite, so she's signed for the upcoming season. She's a highly talented player, so good that she's found a new home. And defender Jasmine Wardlow, she's also signed for the upcoming season. A couple of pickups for the Newcastle Jets as well. So academy player Xavier Bertoncello, he signed a scholarship deal. And Richard Nkomo, he's also signed a scholarship deal after joining from the Wanderers. And then on the women's side, they've also signed Olivia Page, Charlotte Lancaster, and re-signed Alexis Collins. Couple more to get through. So Central Coast Mariners, they've signed former Sydney FC youngster Will Kennedy on a 1-year deal. And they've also signed twin brothers Alexi and James Hurides, who both signed scholarship deals. So plenty of movement across all the A-Leagues clubs. The men's transfer window has now closed, so there won't be too much more activity from there unless players are available on free transfers. But I think the women's window is available for a little bit longer. So we're starting to get to the business end of the season, under a month until that season kicks off for the men's competition anyway. So exciting times as these clubs start to finalise their preparations for the upcoming season.
Yeah, definitely. And it's getting closer. So exciting times ahead and seeing how the all teams shape up. Just a quick update too, Chief. Beijing has just gone and scored in the 11th minute of injury time in the first half in China. It is now 1-1. They scored a penalty. So bit to do for Shanghai Port. They were top of the table there for about 30 minutes, but Beijing's pulled one back. So second half's upon us.
All right, mate, that's a wrap on everything happening in the A-Leagues. What's got your eye as we look forward to the next week in Australian football?
Okay, we've got the all Aussie battle in the championship. We've got Millwall and Watford, Luongo there against Irukunda. So we're looking for more highlights in that reel, especially from Irukunda. And also, too, I think the most important one Aussie fans will be looking at will be Thursday morning at 5 a.m. Notts Forest away to Real Betis, Europe's first massive for the defending coach champion. He gets his first game in his new club, trying to win the Europa League for the second time 2 years in a row. Can he do it with Notts Forest? Can he get off to that start? So a very tricky contest against Real Betis. And then he obviously flies home for his first home game against Sunderland on Sunday at 2:30 Australian Eastern Standard Time. So I'm very intrigued to how Notts Forest's week's going to unfold.
For me, mate, I'm looking forward to catching up with you midweek because we're recording a special bonus episode of the Aussie Game Podcast where we're going to preview the Under-20 World Cup. Now, we've been waiting for this for a long time, mate, and it's finally here. It starts on Sunday next weekend, and the Aussies are going to be in action first up on Monday with their game against Italy. So exciting times. Please, to all our listeners, if you do have some questions or thoughts or anything you want to tell us before we record that preview podcast, please let us know because we want to hear from everyone, and we hope that everyone out there is as excited as we are to launch into this Under-20 World Cup and to see how these top talents are going to do.
And hopefully we'll notice to all viewers that we'll see who's covering the World Cup Under-20s. We'll confirm that on Wednesday when we do our podcast. We think it might be SBS that may be covering the Under-20 World Cup, but we'll keep you posted on our podcast on Wednesday when we update you all on the group stage and the Under-20s Socceroos hopes. We're really looking forward to this one. We've been following this group for quite a while now, and it's quite an exciting time for Australian football to unearth the next generation.
Yeah, so we're recording Wednesday, so get your questions in by Wednesday, and then the podcast will be available from Thursday. So, yeah, as I said, please share your thoughts. We'd love to hear everyone's opinions, and the excitement is absolutely building. All right, Mopper, that might do us for the Aussie Game Podcast for this week. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Thank you, everyone, for your support. Plenty to get through, as always. As mentioned, we'll be back midweek to do the Under-20 World Cup preview. So we hope to see you then.
All right, all the best, everyone, and thanks for the questions and joining in. We appreciate everyone's comments and love hearing from everyone. So get those comments in and we can talk about those important topics that you want to hear about.